Well, hello again and welcome back. I haven't made a video for a couple of weeks now, and the last one, it was all about the workshop and the various jobs I have on out there. And that is still ongoing, of course, but this video is going to be called Back to Baking. Some of you have seen my earlier videos and know how much I love baking, and recently I've been quite busy making bread and also making sourdough bread. My starter is now very mature and it's bubbling along nicely, and I've been quite successful in my sourdough loaves. I'll show you some pictures. So why am I making so much bread? Well, sourdough I'm actually selling in a fundraising effort for my granddaughter who's at university, and she's preparing for a trip next year to Everest Base Camp to raise money for the Meningitis Trust. And in an effort to raise some money for her, I've been making sourdough bread, both tin loaves and cobs, and they've been selling quite well actually. In fact, I've got another 2 to do tonight, ready for tomorrow evening, because it takes about 24 hours to get them done. I've also been making ordinary bread and cakes. Now, I do like making cakes, although I must admit I don't have much of a sweet tooth myself. So this video is going to be about the basics of sourdough preparation and baking, and I just thought I'd show you a couple of the cakes I made yesterday. One for a birthday cake for my other granddaughter, and she is going to be 8, and she's into unicorns, so I made a unicorn cake for her. And the other one is just a general purpose chocolate cake, which I've cobbled together from a number of different recipes. So let's have a quick look at them, and then I'll be right back with you. Well, another sip of tea, I think. That's nice. First cake I worked on yesterday was this unicorn cake. My granddaughter's going to be 8 in a couple of days' time, and she's into unicorns at the moment. So this is the cake I made. I used a metal cake mold in a unicorn cake mold, and then decorated it by putting white icing over it, and then the areas that I needed to put sprinkles on, I just used a glaze of icing sugar and water to make it nice and sticky. I hate using jam to make things sticky, especially if you're using white icing, because you always get specks on it. And then decorated it with all these glitter things, and added an eye and put the various bits on it. So I'm quite pleased with this. Next up, after I finished that unicorn cake, I thought, let's make a chocolate cake for everyone to share. So I made this yesterday evening, and basically it's a cobbled together chocolate recipe using cocoa dark milk chocolate, and as you can see, lots of halved giant chocolate buttons, and chocolate royal icing, sorry, not royal icing, chocolate cream icing, and just put lots of that on there, again using milk chocolate and cocoa to make the mix. I've made one of these before. It tastes rather delicious. It's not too strong, it's not very dark chocolate, but I did put a few chocolates, dark chocolate sprinkles in amongst the chocolate buttons on top of the icing on top of the cake. So that one is to be enjoyed very soon, I think. Not too much for me, because I've got to be extremely careful about my sugar intake, but I'm sure other people will enjoy it. And there we go. So that's the 2 cakes I made yesterday. But now back to the bread and the introduction to my basic methods of making sourdough. Quick slurp of tea. I do love my afternoon tea, and also I do enjoy a digestive biscuit with it as well. But never mind all that. back to my sourdough. For a couple of years I've been making ordinary tin bread using fresh yeast, and that's been very successful. You can do it very quickly. You can make a couple of loaves in, say, 3 hours. You've got a loaf done. But I've been very interested in sourdough, and I've tried a number of times to get a starter going, but quite unsuccessfully. However, about 9 months ago I managed to do the first part of my starter, just water and strong white bread flour, and it started to work perfectly, and I ignored it. I put it away in the fridge and just kind of forgot about it. But when someone mentioned sourdough, they'd like a sourdough cob, I dug it out and refreshed it with 100% so I used 200 grams of strong white bread flour, 200 grams of water, and just let it go for a few days, and very soon I had loads and loads of sourdough starter. Now my first problem was that I wasn't making enough of it, so when I came to make the loaves it very quickly ran out. And as you know, with sourdough you've got to keep feeding it, but one of the things is if you don't use it, it just gets too much, you've got to throw it away, although you can make pancakes with it. Anyway, this one is very successful. It's about 9 months old now. Let me just pick it up without dropping it. It's quite heavy, and it smells absolutely delicious. It's got lots of bubbles on the top of it. It's got that slight yeasty, beery smell to it, and it smells absolutely delicious actually. But I'll give you a quick close-up of the top of it so you can actually see for yourself. So there's looking into the top of the starter jar, and as you can see it's actively bubbling away. It's quite thick, it's got the consistency of thick yogurt, and that is now ready to use. I refreshed it this morning by 100 grams of water and 100 grams of flour, and that's all ready to use, and I'll start this at tea time tonight. Hello again, and it's now the following day. As I said yesterday, I was going to make I had 2 lots of sourdough bread to make tin loaves in the oven, and I'm very pleased to say that they've come out really well. So that's sourdough tin loaf, and I'll give you a close-up of that in a few minutes. But the second part of this video is basically going to be about sourdough. Now, I don't want to go into any great details about the starter. Safe to say that my starter was started about 9 months ago, and it's just simply flour and water, and it's now, I've had it all that time. I've used it an awful lot. I like to just put a mark on there with an erasable marker, the date and the time I've refreshed it, and I used just under a third of it yesterday for these 2 loaves, and what I'm going to do in a minute is top it up again, about 200 mils, 200 grams of water, 200 grams of flour, and then I'll put it in the fridge until I need to use it again. The next bit of video I'm going to show you is just slides of really the process of making bread from the sourdough starter. I'm not going to dwell too long on them because there's quite a lot of them, but it just goes through the sequence. If you look online, you can find loads of stuff about making sourdough, but I'm going to put my procedure down below this video, so if you want to follow what I've done to make my bread, then you can do it that way. I'll just be doing a little bit of commentary as we go, but I'm not going to spend too long on any little bit of it. We've just had the different tiers announced for our different areas. I noticed that most of the country is going to be in tier 2. We're in tier 2 here, and I was going to get some of my music on Fears for Tears, or the other way around. I don't know what it is. Anyway, so we know what we're doing now. and we'll have to just see how it all goes. But enough of that. There's a lot to show you here, and let's go now and have a look at the sourdough and the preparation and the final outcome of my bread. Well, there's my jar of sourdough starter, which I look after and feed regularly. And as I said earlier, if you don't want to keep feeding it every day, just keep it in the fridge and feed it just before you use it again. And yes, last night I started to make these two tin loaves out of sourdough. I know it's more common to make cobs, but I just find these slightly easier to slice, and so there's the two I made today. Well, started them last night, and I think they've turned out very well. So I can't wait now to cut one of them tomorrow morning. The other one's going to go to my daughter because they like it as well. But I'll cut mine tomorrow morning and have it nice and thick and toasted with some butter melted into it and some thick cut marmalade with a cup of espresso. So that's what I'm looking forward to tomorrow morning. Anyway, let's get on with the video, and I'll show you the slides now of the process of making my sourdough.
First, you put 3 tablespoonfuls of sourdough starter in a bowl, add 100 grams of flour and 100 grams of water and mix it very well. You then cover it and let it rest for about 2 hours. You then add some 9 grams of salt to your flour, 700 grams of flour, and then when you're ready, after it's rested, you can pour in the sourdough starter into the main flour. You then need to knead it into a rough bowl. It looks pretty rough, but you have to leave that for a couple of hours, and after that time the dough will look much smoother. You then roll that into a bowl and place it into a bowl which you need to cover and leave overnight. For about 14 hours. In the morning you will have a lovely smooth dough. You then fold it into and stitch it and move that into a bowl and put it into your banneton with the smooth side down. Cover the banneton and leave it for about 4 hours. After that time, the dough will have risen in the banneton. You're now ready to put it into the cloche, which you preheated in the oven. Put some rice flour in the bottom to stop things sticking, and then cut the top of the dough after you've put some rice flour on it. You put the lid on, you put it in the oven, and you cook it for half an hour. After half an hour, take the top off and leave it for a further 10 minutes so it browns up beautifully, and then you can take it out, and there you have a wonderful risen sourdough cob. Look at the stretch marks on that. And then there it is. It's ready to cool, and after it's cooled, ready to eat.
Well, thank you for watching this video. I hope you found it interesting. Next video will be back in my workshop. I've been out there earlier on and it's bitterly cold, and even with my little gas heater your hands get a bit numb, so I'm not too keen on going out there. But the next video will be about some of the work that is still waiting for me there, and I'll be getting back to that very soon. Thank you for watching. Think of me enjoying my bread tomorrow morning, and and I hope your day continues in a satisfactory way. Thank you for watching, and as always, take care.